Kenya's debt burden is set to continue causing Treasury officials sleepless nights, with experts now projecting that the debt level could rise to more than 12 trillion shillings by the end of 2025-2026 financial year. The country will also see interest payments rise to over $1 trillion in the coming financial year, representing a quarter of the 4.2 trillion shillings budget. Mbogoh now paints a picture of the country's debt level and its impact in the coming financial year.
The latest data from the National Treasury shows that Kenya's debt as of December 2024 stood at 10.9 trillion shillings. In the debt stock, external debt accounted for 5.057 trillion, an equivalent of 46.3% of the total debt, while domestic debt accounted for 5.868 trillion shillings, an equivalent of 53.7%. A further breakdown from the Mentori Economics shows that of the external debt stock of 5.06 trillion, Kenyans owe multilateral lenders such as the International Monetary Fund (IMF), World Bank and the Africa Development Bank a total of 2.833 trillion shillings, or 54.9% of the 5.06 trillion shillings external debt. A further 21.8% or 1.102 trillion shillings is owed to bilateral lenders such as China, France and UAE. However, it is the exposure to commercial creditors which stood at 1.163 trillion or 23% owed to international sovereign bonds, syndicated loans, Eurobonds and others that poses a greater risk owing to the high interest rates.
The critical issue here is we are borrowing at 8.25%. Yeah. That is costly because what does that mean is that our debt servicing pressure is not easing anytime soon unless fiscal prudence is exercised. We are likely to see more and more constrained fiscal space.
According to Chachi Lugutu, an economist from IC Group, interest payments are expected to cross the 1 trillion mark in the coming fiscal year.
As 301 billion is now the debt that we are repaying on the external debt, whereas the balance of 560 billion Kenya shillings is now the internal debt, the treasury bonds and the treasury bills. And if you look at the next financial year, we're looking at the interest payments is around 1.1 trillion from 995 billion the current financial year to 1.13 trillion in the next financial year. And the debt that is maturing is right about 940 billion.
Although the government projects revenue improvement in the coming financial year, with the budget policy statement projecting a 3 trillion shillings revenue, experts believe this is unrealistic.
When coming up with a budget, formulate a budget that is within what we can collect internally, so that we don't have to keep borrowing. We offer project revenue, we expand proposed expenditure estimates, then we end up with a higher deficit.
As of the last financial year, we're at 10.58 trillion, so we're adding 800 billion this year and another 800 billion next year. So it's taking us to a base case of 12.2 trillion by end of June next year. So by the end of fiscal year 2025 and 2026. So that is what you are seeing, 12.2 trillion.
The experts are now calling on the government to not only walk the talk, but review the budget, stop undertaking of capital-intensive projects, and ensure strict compliance to Public Finance Management Act for Kenyans to get value. Mbogoh, Citizen TV, Nairobi.